Hey everyone, this is Chris and welcome to the Barta Breakdown. We want to say thank you to Barta Community Housing Agency, our sponsor today, who has been working at developing local housing for over 10 years here in Bonner County and Boundary County. Take a look at bonnerhousing.org and get the information that you need on whether or not you're able to buy a home. You might even qualify to buy one of our homes at BCHA, one of the Bonner Housing homes, in which you would receive a up to $40,000 in down payment assistance. So check and see if you qualify for that when you buy your home through Bonner Community Housing Agency. What I have here is the local newspaper for the good report, right? Daily Bee, Thursday. And I just was struck by the fact that I can open up the newspaper and I see multiple fundraisers and great things that are going on in our area to meet needs that we have in our community. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of those. Number one thing is this Toys for Tots is really big here. Sandpoint Lions does a phenomenal job putting this on. And Friday night from 4 to 7, Hoot Owl puts on a big spaghetti feed to sponsor that. The Chamber of Commerce is doing a toy drive to help sponsor that as well. And so we see this week in, week out as we head up to Christmas. The goal for the Lions, Toys for Tots, is to raise $50,000. You know what? We've raised $11,000, and that's before the spaghetti feed and what the Chamber's doing. So all of that stuff is just very exciting. Tomorrow, Saturday, December 14th, is Lake Pend Oreille High School's third annual Christmas Gift Fair. This is going from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the fair is kind of an indoors farmers market with arts, crafts, artisan foods, handmade gifts, artesian wells. I'm just kidding. Artisan gifts, different things like that. So I just was excited to see that I can open up the newspaper here and see so many great things happening. And to me, that's a good report because it says a lot about our community, that we're always willing to invest in one another. We're willing to give. And we are so fortunate to live in a place that prioritizes each other at such a high level, especially those who are less fortunate. And so I'm very excited about that. That is the good report for today. Just so that you're aware, next episode, we're going to be talking about Avenues for Hope and the fundraiser that Bonner Community Housing Agency has going for that. As part of the good report, you're able to help provide some transitional supportive services housing for some people, and we're looking for some people to sponsor that as we have been working on that here at Bonner Community Housing Agency. So with that, we're going to jump in to today's show at the Barta Breakdown. We have Raphael, Barta, and Stephanie Rief from the Selkirk Association of Realtors. Every week, we are always trying to overcome our technical difficulties while we're getting this thing up and running. So we have done kind of a precursory season of doing shows and kind of running over the speed bumps while we get things worked out. We are a small local operation, and so we appreciate your patience with us. We do ask that if you have feedback for us, feel free to send it over. We're open to whatever you have for us. And if you have a guest or somebody that you think would be really good to have on the show here that you want to see, sit down and have a conversation, shoot us an email at connect@bonnerbreakdown.com. Without further ado, here's the interview. Yeah. All right. Well, it's good to have you guys with us today. Raphael, Barta, and Stephanie Rief are here with the Selkirk Association of Realtors. And I'm excited to get to know you guys a little bit better. We're going to have some good conversation. We've already had some conversation, so I'm excited to see where it goes today. It'll be a lot of fun. So, of course, we always want to start with a little background, a little history. We want to hear about you and kind of, where you're from and kind of your background. So we'll start with you, Stephanie. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you came from.
Grew up in Sandpoint native, lived in Dover. My mind just went blank. So you can cut that out, right?
Yeah, I can. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sandpoint native. Always thought of Sandpoint as my home. Very passionate about the area and the people.
Yeah.
Moved away a few times. Always come home. Background is in title, escrow, lending. Went to work for University of Idaho Finance and Administration Office, and decided that Moscow wasn't for me and I wanted to come home. So
Okay.
here I am.
Here you are. So when did you move back?
In 2009.
Okay. Great. Now in 2010, you started working with the Association of REALTORS.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
so what have you been doing there?
I am the executive director, and we do a lot of education and member services and community outreach, advocacy, a lot of fun stuff for the community and for our members. Hopefully they find it fun.
Right.
And beneficial.
So when you talk about the Association of Realtors, it's members, it's member driven, it's actually a designation. Tell us a little bit more about what it means. What does being a realtor mean? Because it's an actual trademark title, realtor, right?
Yes, it is.
So
From the National Association.
from the
Yes.
National Association.
It is a brand.
There we go.
Yes.
It's a brand.
Yes.
And with it comes, obviously the education. You have, the ability to gather kind of group funds, all types of stuff for, lobbying for different things, as well as working on large projects, which you guys do a lot of here. And I know that on the state level, there's a lot of different realtors and there's a lot of different people involved on the state level. And especially you, Raphael, you're part of the state leadership with the Association of Realtors, but let's hear a little bit more about you.
Well, thank you, Chris. I came to Sandpoint 20 years ago, exactly 20 years ago, to help the new ownership for Schweitzer Mountain develop some real estate. My background was 25 years in Vancouver and Whistler, developing real estate for Intra-West. So Sandpoint seemed a natural fit for me. Great skiing, small town, wonderful people. What's not to like? So I've stayed 20 years here as a full-time skier and a full-time real estate broker.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you moved from Vancouver to Schweitzer. What was the draw to this area?
When Harbor Properties acquired Schweitzer out of bankruptcy, one of the senior people at Harbor was an ex-Intra-Wester with me, and we knew each other very well. And he said, "Why don't you come down and look at Schweitzer? It looks like Whistler 1978, blank slate. You could, we could do whatever we want to rebuild a mini Whistler or whatever seems appropriate." And that temptation to redo my Whistler experience was just so strong.
Cool.
And I came here on really a 90-day contract.
Okay.
And 20 years later, that explains a lot about Sandpoint. We hear all the time, you
All
drive
the
over the
time.
Long Bridge
Yeah.
Yes.
and you're
Yeah.
hooked. And
Yeah.
I drove over the Long Bridge and I was hooked.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, you're here on a 90-day contract, turns into 20 years,
Yeah.
and no regrets?
Absolutely none. I've many times I've missed, the urban pace and a big deal pool. I'm a deal junkie. I love doing deals. And I've often thought, well, I should go seek my fortune or some fame or something. But Sandpoint gets into your blood.
It sure does.
And here I am. So you vote with your feet. Here I am.
Yep, that's awesome.
I skied today, which is
Yeah,
why
right?
I'm so pumped. I'm in my après ski
I love
buzz.
it. That's great.
So yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, you ski quite a bit and do a lot of outdoor activities. When you look at the lifestyle that Sandpoint has to offer, what are the highlights for you?
Well, less people think that I don't really work hard. I got up at 5 because I do every day. I just get up early, and I had my coffee and did my computer work.
That's hilarious.
I set out from my house about 20 after 8. I was at the mid-level parking lot at 8:45. I was on the quad at 5 after 9. I left at 11:45, was in my office by 1. I have a closing today. So that's the beauty of Sandpoint.
Come
you
on.
can't do
Yeah, you
that
just hit it,
almost
yep.
anywhere else. Like I skied 3 hours, had an awesome time. I was in the office, so my clients think, "Oh, he's working hard on a Friday afternoon," which you are. That's the beauty of Sandpoint.
Yeah,
You can
absolutely.
really do that here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I
Yeah.
when I was in the mortgage business, I'd spend 3-4 days, half day up at the mountain,
Yep.
over the winter. It's great. Works awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, I love it.
I'm a real estate broker. I sell to a lot of resort, second home, vacation home, retirement folks. They've often commented that they want to be me. I live what I sell.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I'm a fly fisherman,
Yeah,
golfer.
Yeah.
I'm at the lake in the summer and at the mountain in the winter. That's
Huh.
why they want to be here.
Well, and there's very few places as sweet as this.
Well,
in the world.
I know them because my job as Interwest was to go all over the continent, Canada and the States, and ski it all.
Uh-huh.
So I skied everything from Vermont, New Hampshire, to Mammoth, California, Alaska. I've skied
Awesome.
everywhere. And the thing about Sandpoint is it's accessible. It's local friendly. It's affordable. I mean, Aspen's a great hill, but you couldn't afford to ski it
That's right.
like we ski Schweitzer.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. Well, and the size of the mountain is beautiful as well.
yeah.
Very it's huge.
Yeah, it's an overall great experience.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Well, now you grew up here.
Yes.
And then you left for a little bit and you did some moving around and then you came back.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about, all right, so Sandpoint 25, 30 years ago versus today. What are some of the biggest changes that you see have happened here being raised here? Local.
Population growth.
Mm-hmm.
Housing has, where there used to be fields that we'd hay or ride our horses in, now is full of housing, which, with the population growth is needed.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, there's so much has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Being from Dover, as you can imagine,
A huge change.
going to Dover is like going to another planet now. So,
Yeah.
but some of it's been good. Some of it is, kind of a wow,
Mm-hmm.
upside the head factor. But as far as, gosh, like I say, there's just so much. Industry has changed a lot.
Uh-huh.
So,
What do you mean?
well, when I was younger, Lighthouse was just starting out.
Mhm.
I remember being out at the Lighthouse for family functions.
Right,
and-
the restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant.
Yeah.
And before they started, big production and everything. And I remember in high school coming home, because I actually went to high school in Bozeman, and coming home for summers or coming out of high school working at Lighthouse in the print shop.
Uh-huh.
And seeing, going from the Walmart plant, the Walnut Street,
Okay,
plant.
yeah.
Now they've got 3 giant facilities,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just great to see that grow. And we've got, now we've got Quest and
Yeah.
Schweitzer's grown
Mhm.
incredibly, as Rief has talked about Schweitzer.
Yeah.
And one of the best things though about the growth is the bypass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was it's an interesting thing because I grew up in Spokane. I moved here in 2005. And the hubbub about the bypass at that time was it'll never happen.
Right.
Right? It'll never happen. That ship sailed. There's no way for that's ever going to happen. It's been battled for 50 years,
Right.
type of thing. And there was a lot of, I think with most things political here, there's people for it, people against it. Everyone here is vociferous, so we love to have the conversation. It seems, no matter where you stand, everybody's talking about it. Of course, social media today helps because
Oh my
you
gosh.
don't even have to leave your house to
Right.
make comments. But what do you think the big benefit of the bypass has been?
Keeping the trucks from downtown.
For real?
Yeah. It's a totally different environment now.
Yeah.
I think it opens it a lot for foot traffic.
Uh huh. Yeah.
In fact, I was talking to my sister today, and she was downtown just walking around. And it's like, the big trucks downtown always kind of worried me, because are they paying attention, and are we paying attention to them as much?
Well, my favorite thing was, sitting out on the deck at Arlo's.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you get a smell from those pig trucks going by. You're like, oh my goodness, you're right out front of Ivano's there, or, any of these places. You're like, whoa. So that's been nice not to have to deal with that downtown. Yeah. That's good.
And it's not just the trucks. It's, the through traffic. Yes.
Well, it was funny when they were, I remember during that whole process, they mapped it out, and from one corner of downtown to the other corner, still smaller than one end of Walmart to the end of their parking lot.
Wow.
So downtown's smaller than Walmart and the parking lot at Walmart. So when we think size-wise and how much do I have to walk, it's actually less than up at Walmart to shop downtown. I always thought that was interesting when when they were doing all that, and Susan Cabert was doing all the promotion for the bypass at the time. Yes. So what were some big changes for you that you've seen, Raphael? 20 years?
Geography really informs and determines us. Mm-hmm. And I say that because, with all due respect to Lighthouse, they just put 400,000 feet in St. George, Utah, and another 500,000 feet in Provo or Ogden. Mm-hmm. For their business, it was smart. It made sense to heavily invest in the Utah infrastructure, flight, ground transportation, etc. We are in North Idaho. We are isolated in the Panhandle.
Yep.
And that 1 hour north of Coeur d'Alene and the different time zone, it really does affect us.
Okay.
I think in a material way, and it mentally, philosophically, politically.
Yeah.
Financially.
Yeah.
So I saw the growth in 20 years here as incremental, not monumental.
That's right. Yeah.
When I did Whistler, in a 5-year stint, we exploded that place. Development rarely leaves a place better than it finds it. So I kind of apologize for crass commercialism. Development in Whistler. If I had it to do over again, I might rethink a lot of that. But if you look at Coeur d'Alene, if you look at Boise, Meridian, Eagle, that's explosive growth. Mm-hmm. We haven't had that. And because of the lake, the mountains, the Bonner County restriction, that's called the Area of City Impact in a planning jargon, right? We are limited topographically by where we can expand. I mean, look at Rathdrum and Post Falls. The creeping urban sprawl. I'm against that. But, that's growth.
Yeah.
We haven't had that.
So you mentioned the change in the time zones, and you spend a fair amount of time in Boise. You are, the state president for the Idaho Association of Realtors. You're on your way out. You've served 2 years. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
You spend a lot of time down south. Tell us a little bit about the difference in politics between where the seat of Idaho is in Boise, where you end up spending a few weeks, right, out of the month?
Boise's an outstanding place. I went there with an attitude. I went there with the North Idaho, I'm going to show them attitude. But Boise is a wonderful city. It works.
I love it.
It actually works.
Yeah, I really like it.
I became good friends with Governor Otter and Governor Little and most of the legislature. And it's interesting. The Idaho State Legislature is made up of sheep farmers, pharmacists, guys who own a title company. I mean, normal, everyday working people who actually have the better interests of Idaho at heart. I really had I changed my position 180 degrees.
Really?
Yeah, I went there thinking,
that's cool.
We're going to show them something from 7B. But they see Idaho as one entity. And I've been very impressed by the political will in our state. Now, we tend to think alike. We vote heavily Republican, and we don't have the kind of discord you see at the national level. Okay. Idahoans kind of all think in the same direction.
Right. And there's, of course, pockets.
Oh
that
yeah,
think
and
differently.
and I
that's-
call it
yep,
difference. I mean, we
Yep.
should have Democrats and we should have Republicans and
Yep.
independents. Diversity is better.
Always.
So-
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Now, how would you describe the political philosophy of North Idaho?
You know, I've paid a lot of attention to it because I wonder sometimes if we aren't trending towards leave us alone. We liked it fine in 1984. We'd like to roll the drawbridge up. We really would like, tax revenues, but we really don't want the growth that tax revenues, come from.
Yep.
And we wished, the world would pass us by and leave us alone in our pastoral wonder,
Yep.
our clean lake, our beautiful mountain.
Right.
And thank you very much. I don't know that I've sensed that lately in the last 5 years. I
Well-
don't think we're as inclusionary as we ought to be.
And what's really funny to me is people who move here pick that up immediately,
That's why they move here.
That's why they move here.
right? Like, I mean,
And you'll
they
hear
move
them
here-
say that.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, wait, you just moved? You just came in and now you're like, nobody else.
Right.
I'm the last one.
they
you know?
they researched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
attracts like.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
And we
yeah.
are now, whatever the readout and all that stuff, that's a bit to the extreme.
Sure.
But people research and they go
They do,
to where
yep.
they think they will feel comfortable. And I think we keep attracting the same sort of attitude and philosophy, which
Yeah.
I'm not disparaging.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's
It's just a
saying
fact.
good or bad about it.
Yeah,
but
it's just a fact.
Yeah. So let's talk about growth. Let's talk about the growth and what's already happening here. You said in the last 5 years you've noticed a different, like, kind of a consistency with the attitude of, kind of like just leave us alone here. And yet, we're constantly rated one of the best places to live. We're constantly, the mountain gets accolades, the lake gets accolades. And when we look at the growth and what's happening here, I think you could break down growth into several different categories. So maybe let's just look at the is growth something that's sustainable? And obviously we're growing. So what kind of growth are we experiencing? What do you guys see? What kind of growth are we experiencing right now?
Well, if you look at the census 10 years ago, we were about 8,000. If you look at the latest census, incrementally, we're 8,500.
Yeah.
So we didn't explode with growth. If you look at the demographics of our population, we don't have very many younger
we don't.
segments. We don't have family formation groups. So we don't have organic growth. We have in-migration growth. And the in-migration growth is 60 years and up.
That's right.
So that we're
That's true.
becoming top-heavy at those levels, which has all kinds of other social ramifications. If you look at the physical constraints to growth, I bet there aren't even 10 vacant lots left to build in the city of Sandpoint. Dover, Kootenai, Ponderay really don't want to be part of Sandpoint Metro.
Right.
So Sandpoint might be done for the amount of housing that it can logically put into the ground. Accessory dwelling units are great, and going vertical has its issues here. So where are we going to accommodate another 2,000 or 3,000 people physically? Where will we do that?
Well,
Not in the city.
If you guys have noticed, there have been a ton of, no, not a ton, maybe in building materials, but a lot of ADUs going up, or AUDs, auxiliary dwelling units,
Yeah.
ADUs, over people's garages, over the small second lot they have
Yeah.
behind their home that's probably been there for, who knows, 50 years.
Yeah. Long time. Yep.
A lot of that going
Yep.
on, and a lot of the new construction that we've seen has space or future plans for those units. So I don't know.
But you can't live as a family in an ADU.
No, you cannot.
And the segment of population we really are struggling to attract
Correct.
is the young family
Correct.
formation group, 25 to 40.
Correct.
So
when we look at growth and sprawl and spreading out, right? Because of we are limited, like you said earlier, Raphael. You talked about us. We're limited in obviously within the city of Sandpoint, geographical limitations. You're buttressed with a lake. On the other side, you've got other cities that are there, and then you've got a couple areas of the city that are up against the county that are in that area of city impact into the county area. Some areas that could be annexed eventually, but when we look at the kind of quad city, whether it's Dover, Kootenai, Pend Oreille, and Sandpoint areas, in order for there to be sustained growth for single family residences or multi-unit, whether it's townhouses or something like that's really formed for smaller families. Where does that go in the county without spreading into Selly Valley, or moving, further, that's really the main direction unless you go down south, right, and head Sagal southwards. So, where does the growth sit? Like, how do we fit that in? Is it just not possible? Are we just kind of stuck, or what do you think?
I'm going to defer that one to you.
well, Sagal has trunk line issues.
Correct.
You need sanitary trunks and water trunks, and so until it embraces that, and who's going to front end that? Because they don't really want a small city there, so they're not going to do a bond issue to front end something for developers. Similarly, in the city of Sandpoint, we've run out of land, and there is a political will not to have vertical
Correct. Yeah.
growth here.
Yeah.
So what I think the next play is, and this is an investor tip, all the single wides and double wides that are legally in town are going to go gentrification. It's the only other way. They'll all just get eaten up, demolished, and new buildings will happen where those little trailers are, which means you're going to lose a lot of affordable housing because that is our default affordable housing base right now.
Yep.
I see Sandpoint as becoming a mini Aspen. It won't hit those price points.
Right.
But if you feel you have to live in Sandpoint, and the median list price now is $387,000 median list price in Sandpoint. That means no locals can live in Sandpoint. That means everybody who's going to pay $387 or over is going to come from someplace else.
Yeah, median income can afford around $200,000. So we're off by $187,000 from a median income affordability standpoint.
And the average listing price throughout the county is over $550. So
yeah,
that creates another issue, even if they don't want to live in town.
So I'm always shopping for houses. I'm a developer. We buy houses, acquire them, rehab them, and then we resell them. We add on a loan that helps pay for their down payment. We give them 20% down or $40,000, as a no interest, no payment loan to help them qualify on their mortgage. So if we find a house at $200,000, their mortgage is around $160,000, which is a $200 to $300 a month difference for a buyer, which is great.
Sorry, Rief.
So I'm shopping right now, and I found 4 3-bedroom, 2-bath units under $200,000 in the whole county.
That sounds
4.
right.
4.
That sounds right. I found
That's it.
3 under 250
Yeah.
that were, and isn't one of yours a mobile?
Yeah, which we do manufacture, so which we can repair, and we do all the renovations on them. So even if there's some structural issues, we can repair that kind of stuff.
When you say in the county, do you include Priest River?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because one other thing I think will happen is you will see much more buyer attention to Priest River
I totally agree
and
with you
to
on
Bonners
that.
Ferry.
I totally agree.
Because Sandpoint has hit peak price, and it will force people to look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that there's some area around Kootenai that I think will, in Kootenai's area city impact, that they'll be able to develop pretty easily. I think there's some room for development out there, but beyond that, it's going to be very difficult to find things. So what's the magic solution here, right? Shouldn't there be like a magic wand we can wave to fix this, housing crisis? Is there any, I mean, one of the things that I've looked at for years is the land trust model of getting land, purchasing the land, putting it in a trust, and then selling the homes on that land, where we remove the cost of the land from the deal. It drops the price tremendously, and then there's a resale restriction that causes it to forever be resold at a lower price. With the mindset up here, like, people want their land. So this concept of the land trust it hits bumps. There's a big I think there's an appetite for the pricing, but the model is a tough one I think for some people. Any other thoughts on what can we do about this?
Well, you were saying the mindset, and I think what you're hoping to achieve would take a public-private partnership, and it would take a political will to do so. And I think you would encounter here the city, the government has no role in providing that kind of housing. Let the market be what it will be.
Yeah.
And market constraints are such that, the price of lumber is the same for your $200,000 home as it is for an $800,000 home, and the labor component in construction is so scarce. Good skilled labor that can produce, that shows up on time for a 5-day work week is so short that if a developer has a choice to build a $200,000 unit or an $800,000 unit, the money is in the higher end. You build towards the top end revenue, and so I'm telling you, stick a fork in it, you're done. You're not going to see those $200,000, $250,000 homes. The opportunity cost is too great.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because whenever we've looked at new construction and we've got local bids versus out-of-town bids, the out-of-town bids are always way cheaper.
Yeah.
Always, just hands down. It's not even apples to apples. Because it's expensive to live here.
Have you looked at the breakdown of a home in terms of the layers of cost? The first layer is the dirt. The second layer is the utility infrastructure. The third layer is what I call development cost charges and city impact fees.
Correct.
Then you go to concrete foundation, you go to the mud sill, you go to the lumber package, etc., and you work your way up. And there's probably 150 line items in that. And if you start to look at where the heavy-duty line items are, that's where you will see that your adventure can't be done. Sorry.
No, I agree.
Unless
the land,
you go 400-foot units vertical. If you could do a 12-story building and find some economies of scale, some efficiencies, but you don't see any buildings here really over 3 or 4 stories.
No. So when you look at the role and the process of, the role of the realtor in the growth of the region and in the health of the economy here, tell us a little bit about what the realtors do and what is it that they do to kind of help with all these different aspects of growth that we're talking about, because I think the realtors, intimately involved in the entire home buying, selling process, obviously, but tell us a little bit about the impact of realtors in the community, because I think a lot of people don't see it or know it or understand what they do.
Well, to me, the realtor's the heart of the transaction, because, that's what they do. They do it every day. They know to look for a septic permit, or they know to have a slip inspection. Things like that. They know the zoning. They know the lenders. They know the title companies. That most of them have relationship with the county, and so many other facets of the transaction. And a friend of ours actually sat down one time and counted. There's over 180 steps in one real estate transaction, and that was a simple deal.
Yeah.
So, and the realtor's involved in all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't think a lot of people understand the complexity of a real estate transaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we recently had a class on wills and stuff like that for the realtors. And it was funny. And the reason I bring this up is because I was listening to Lisa Moline talk about, the different aspects of putting together a will and probate and stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I never would have thought of that. But because a realtor, and I use that because a realtor does that every day, does the transaction. And they are so helpful, and I would recommend to anybody thinking about buying or selling a home, go out and interview three to five realtors, find the person who fits with you. And if it's not a good fit after you get into it, then, hey, there's always something else out there.
How many realtors are there in Bonner County, or I guess in the Selkirk MLS?
In the MLS at this time, we have 803 MLS logins, but that does include appraisers and some staff.
As well as people in Kootenai County.
We have some, I call that cross-pollination.
Right. Yeah.
We cover from the Canadian border down. Our jurisdiction or our territory is Bonner and Boundary counties, but we have quite a few Coeur d'Alene agents coming this way.
Okay. So what do you see the role of the Association of Realtors statewide and then locally, as an organization?
Well, I have an expression, all of us are better than one of us. And when you get an organized group, and we're all very diverse people, different age, nationalities, political bent, whatever. But in that one focus of protecting the public's property rights and it's community building. I mean, buying and selling a house is the least of what a realtor does.
Right.
It's all about community building. And we are part of the community. Realtors are like coaches for Little League.
Yes.
They go to assisted living and cut hair. I mean, the amount of volunteerism is as wide and as deep as this community can take.
That's awesome.
And that's really what realtors do. And I should say the word realtor has become generic. It's like Xerox or Jell-O or Kleenex. It's a brand. And not all agents are actually realtors.
Okay.
So a realtor lives to a code of ethics, to education requirements, always. They're trying to be as professional as possible in everything they do. And there is no association of home sellers. There's no association of home buyers.
Right.
There's an association of realtors. So we take it upon ourselves to look out for our clients, be it a seller or a buyer. And the realtors I know, they treat their clients like you would treat your mom. How would you want your mom to be treated in this transaction? Good communication, transparency.
Absolutely.
Explain the detail 27 times if you have to.
Totally. Especially a first-time home buyer, it's just like
it could be a 20-time home buyer. Let
True.
me tell you, everyone needs the guidance. So
that's great.
That's what the association does.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no,
I'd
go
like
for
to add on to some of the stuff Rafe said about being part of the community. Our realtor members are involved in so many things that we don't even know about at the association. I mean, even though we know them and it's like a family, there's so many that do so much. I didn't know Rafe used to coach Little League, and
now you know.
Now I mean, I knew that a couple of years ago, but I didn't, for this.
Yeah, you don't
8
think
years
about it.
Before that, I knew him. And we have so many that volunteer at church or at events.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing.
What are some of the big things that you guys do community-wise every year? I know that you guys have a golf tournament that you put on.
Yeah.
You guys just finished a big gathering of Christmas trees that you had out all over the city. Tell us a little bit about some of those things that you like to do.
Well, I'm going to start at the first of the year and kind of work our way down. There's some
Sure,
big things we do.
Yeah.
one of the things we do a breakfast fundraiser for Lost in the 50s.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Got a lot of realtors down serving breakfast and trying to help Carolyn out and helping at the car show the next day. Then the golf tournament is for our grants and scholarships program, where we help college students and graduating seniors realize their continued education.
Come on.
Yeah, dreams. And
so tell us a little bit about that, because I've always been impressed by how much money you guys give away every year in grants. How was this last year for you guys?
This last year, our golf tournament net profit was $24,000.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
Come on, that's awesome.
That's
really good.
Yeah.
Great. And you give money out to people who apply. What's the process for the grants?
Well, like I said, we do the scholarships for the students, but we have such a wide range of other nonprofits in the area that apply for our grants, like the senior centers, food bank, community cancer services.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
organizations like that can always use a helping hand.
Okay.
And it's always awesome to help them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and when is the golf tournament? Generally, is that May,
It's
June?
the third Friday in June.
In June. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And we've been fortunate enough to be able to be back at the Idaho Club. So thanks, Bill, for that. And
yeah. Good.
It's
good.
a beautiful course.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay. Then what?
Then what? Oh, then we move on to our fall food drive.
Okay.
And this year, between Bonners Ferry and Sandpoint, we received over 5,000 pounds in food donations and over $3,000. And that is distributed between Bonners Ferry,
Come on.
Clark Fork, Hope, Priest River, and Sandpoint.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
exciting. That's
Yes.
awesome.
And then Giving Tree, you touched on Giving Tree.
Yeah.
Giving Tree is a program for income qualified families, lower income families, that are involved in certain programs throughout the community, such as Head Start or Mountain State Head Start, Kinderhaven. And we take wish lists, basically, from any child and their siblings that are enrolled in those programs and provide them with Christmas, help their families.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
Good.
It is we have 240 kids this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And, you can't do that by yourself,
Nope.
right? Those are the things that you're never going to achieve that on your own.
Right.
So it's awesome that you guys create community and are able to kind of help, kids get scholarships and these different nonprofit grants. It's awesome. That's super exciting. So when you look at next 5 years of Sandpoint and Bonner and Boundary County, when you look at this area that you guys are serving, what do you see as being some of the biggest challenges coming up for our region? I'll start with you, Raphael.
I think we really have to embrace affordability in our housing. They talk about jobs and housing, and they're inextricably connected.
Correct. Yeah.
But a large employer would pass us over because they couldn't find 100 houses here for a new plant. So you can, offer every kind of incentive you want to attract a plant here of some sort. But if you don't have the housing base,
Right. Yep.
that won't happen. And we need to worry about our livability index. The average wage means you're house poor, so you really don't have much of a quality of life if you're working 2 or 3 jobs just to make your accommodation.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we need to embrace that.
Yeah.
I say that's our biggest challenge. We talk about parks and bike paths and all that stuff, but we live in a place of incredible natural beauty. And I think we need to
I agree, yeah.
make that not as important anymore as taking care of our people. We need to take care of our people and keep our people. Why have a brain drain? Why have our best and brightest go to Coeur d'Alene or Boise or wherever
Yeah.
to find meaningful work
Yeah.
or meaningful housing or both? So we need to retain our good people.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think, Stephanie? What would you say is some of the big challenges coming up on the horizon here for our region?
Well, I would repeat what Rafe had to say, but not as eloquently. You're welcome. No, I do think housing is an issue, and especially after attending some meetings with the county and the city and the economic forums.
Yeah.
And listening to, we've been hearing it from Schweitzer, their housing issues for their employees, and Quest, we've heard it there in Coachella, and it's just, I know we've got our best and brightest minds on it, working on it, but I do think that housing is going to continue to be an issue.
Okay.
So.
Well, one of the things that I think is when we look at some of the big bright spots coming up in our future, with Sandpoint, what do you see as being some really big wins that are easily achievable for us? It's always easy to look at the negative. It's always easy to see, that doesn't connect, or that's not right, or here's the challenge. But what do you think are some areas where it's going to be a big victory, where we're going to have a big win? Really good things on the horizon. What do you see?
I go back where you say parks and trails and stuff like that. I think on the smaller victory side, I think the fact that the city's working with the Carousel of Smiles.
Oh, yeah.
To get the ponies back spinning around, and hopefully down at City Beach.
That'd be fun.
Yes. Another bright spot is Pine Street Woods.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Rafe. I look at those kind of things as, I don't know, maybe an icing on the cake, but
sure, that's a good way to put it.
It's yes, we do live in such a beautiful place, and maybe the small victories to me mean more than the giant ones.
Yeah.
And that wasn't any way, shape, or form a dig on you, Rafe. I love you, but it's just the small things add up to be the big things.
Yeah.
And we have so many of those small things.
Mm-hmm.
And, the work they're doing in Boundary County on, Bonner's Ferry downtown on the South Hill and the sidewalks. Right. And when we were up there a couple of years ago and seeing the cross-country kids literally running right alongside the highway, with the big trucks coming in and stuff like that, and going, oh my gosh, if I wouldn't let my kids do that. So they're working on getting sidewalks and improving the infrastructure so it's a safer, those are
those
things are the little victories. And
good.
So
good. What do you think, Raphael?
I think Sandpoint has momentum. If you look at the catchment area from the Canadian border down, south of Athol, within the whole large geography, Sandpoint is kind of the place where artists and creative types want to come to, and I think we build on that. The lake, the mountain, we have clean air, clean water, forests. We have already a very cool kind of psyche, and I think you build. You build on that.
Cool.
I think we have the brain power here, and I think we'll continue to attract brain power.
Yeah.
People want less chaos. They want peace of mind. They want to live their life. And I think that's becoming more difficult in places like Seattle and San Jose or wherever.
Yeah.
And so I think our humbleness, our low-key approach actually is very attractive. And I think we will begin to find that younger family formation group that I'm so desperate to attract, because I think quality of life, how you raise your kids, how you live your life, I think will become more important in the chaos of the 20th century. So
yeah.
And that's one of the things that brought me back is I wanted my daughter to grow up here because it feels safe.
Yeah.
It's, if she was riding her bike down the street, 3 or 4 people would know her, And if something happened, I always knew that I'd either get
my kids hated it because they couldn't get away with nothing.
My daughter didn't like that either. So she always.
I know my kid. I can hear my daughter saying, "Dad, we got away with a lot more than you know." All right, but you know how it is. But that's great. Any other thoughts when you think about real estate and you think about the future of Sandpoint. You know, Raphael, you've made some really good points about, listen, we got to wrap our minds around some things here in order to move forward, in order for us to, I think, be healthy as a community with the challenges that we have going forward. Any other thoughts on that?
A big thought, a big plug for the coming meetings for the comprehensive plan.
Yes,
we
that's good.
we have
Yep.
got to engage citizenry, not just real estate wonks or political hacks or whatever, but
Yep.
the mayor and the planning department are doing an awesome job.
I agree.
To try to communicate
Mhm.
and to try to get their ear to people. Well, democracy is a participation sport, so
Yep.
we need this whole community to weigh in on the comprehensive plan, and there will be plenty of opportunity to do so over the next 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
So that's my
Yeah.
final thought for you. Comp plan.
Yeah.
Come to the workshops.
No, that's great. That's great. And I love the group that they're working with to do the, was it Logan Simpson?
Yep.
The group
Yes.
that they've got that they're working with is doing a great job. Yeah, it's really good. And of course, that's in 3 parts. You've got the airport, and then you've got your Parks and Rec, and then the overall comprehensive plan going on. And there's been a lot of kind of chaotic stuff happening, lately, politically anyways. We just went through pretty rough and tumble elections recently. Was one of the more, rougher elections that I'd seen in a long time. So, just came out of that. And of course, we've got everything happening between the county and the city and everything else. So the more engaged that we are, I think the better that these things are going to be, whether or not you're for or against or whatever. But the more people are speaking up, the better it's going to be for everybody,
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Any other thoughts, Stephanie? Before we head out?
Before we head out, no.
Yeah.
not
Well, I
really.
appreciate you guys coming on and spending some time with us.
Thank you,
and
Chris.
Thank you.
These podcasts are available anywhere that you can find podcasts, iTunes or Google or iHeartRadio or any of the places that you can find them, as well as of course on Facebook and YouTube. So, all right.
Excellent.
See you guys later.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one.
Thank you,
Okay,
Chris.
Bye.